I'm going to give people a minute to settle. My name is Nikhil Chandhok. I am Chief Product Officer at Circle. I'm here to talk to you about unlocking the reach of USDC through product initiatives that we have been implementing over the last few years. And so we'll get right into it. But first, I'm going to motivate a little bit of like why we chose USDC and like what about the dollar is interesting and that's worth talking about. So we know that a majority of the global transactions happen in US dollars. Total M2 money supply is somewhere north of 21 trillion, and about 2 trillion of that is in cash. Of the 2 trillion in cash, more than 1 trillion of that cash is held outside the United States. So a lot of people like to use the dollar for conducting business and doing things with the dollar. So what does that look like? Well, there are a variety of use cases. I'm a product manager. I think about use cases. And the first use case is obviously remittance and global payments, right? So if you're a migrant worker, if you're an immigrant, you want to send money home, you want to send dollars home, and eventually you want to make sure that your family receives the most amount of money that they possibly can. If you're a business doing global payments, you have invoices in dollars that you have to pay at all times. If you're doing any kind of international trade or like foreign exchange, you will realize that most commodities in the world, most assets in the world are priced in dollars, and you hedge your FX risk using a dollar pair currency to your local currency. So most international FX trading is on dollar pairs. Investing and hedging. If you are looking to invest in the United States, you need dollars. If you are trying to raise money outside the United States, you'd like to price your deal in dollars. And then simpler things like travel. Like if you are traveling around the world, dollars and cash are the preferred way of like, that's what people want, right? So, but what about these dollars is inefficient? Well, the first thing that is inefficient is when I send money to someone who is across the world, money gets tied up, and it gets tied up in clearing houses. And we try to approximate how much money is tied up in these clearing houses, and it's about $3 trillion at any given time, right? And why is there $3 trillion in these clearing houses? Because there are two types of risks that these clearing houses are managing. They're managing settlement risk, and they're managing credit risk. They want to make sure that the transaction that is happening, there is no double spend. That if I'm sending you $1 and all I have is $1, I'm not turning around and sending that dollar to somebody else. Credit risk is saying, hey, making sure that the money actually moves from the bank account, from one bank account to the next bank account, okay? So a lot of money tied up. This is money that is not being deployed in the economy right now. This is money that is not being used by businesses. This is money that is not in pockets of people, so inefficient. So what did we do? We created a US dollar stablecoin on the blockchain. You deposit $1 with us, we give you a dollar token back, and that dollar token comes with a few features. It settles in seconds. So if I was to send you money, that transaction can be recorded on the chain in a few seconds typically. Settlement costs a fraction of a cent. Depending on the chain you use, you could be spending pennies, you could be spending fractions of cents just to send money to each other, and it happens at internet speed. And most importantly, it removes credit risk. If I have sent you $1, I cannot turn around and double spend that dollar. Okay, and this is a very important thing, and this removes risk from the system. So all of that $3 trillion that is sitting there need not be sitting there if everybody could just move money to the next person immediately, and also make sure that when they have moved the money, that is recorded, and all the credit risk is removed. So we've been doing, USDC has been out in the market for 5 years. And we're seeing, like Jeremy said, we are sort of in this utility phase of crypto, and we have partners that have partnered with Circle to bring USDC into their ecosystems. So the first one I'd like to highlight is SAP. SAP worked with Circle to bring USDC-based payments to people who are using the to merchants that are using the SAP platform. Mercado Libre has given their users the ability to buy and hold USDC. Visa now uses Solana and USDC to simplify merchant payments. So we're seeing more mainstream adoption of USDC to solve a variety of use cases. Okay? So no surprise here, 70% of the USDC is held outside the United States. And why is that the case? Because to hold dollars outside the United States is an extremely difficult value proposition. You either have to go get cash, or you have to be lucky to live in a country that allows you to have a dollar account. And most internet-connected consumers in the world do not have access to a dollar account. Right? So to go buy cash internationally is very, very expensive. If you have a local currency and you want dollars to travel, to do business, you have to go get it from a central bank, and it's extremely difficult to do that. So what is our vision? Well, our vision is we want to make sure that every internet user has access to dollar stablecoins. So there are 5.4 billion internet users in the world. We want to make sure that every one of them has dollars in their digital wallets, and they're using them to spend money for any kind of use case that the dollar can support. So what would that world look like? Well, we think about it as a post-scarcity world, and an example of scarcity is voice communication. In the 1980s, AT&T and Bell laid out like all of these wires, and they sold voice communication to households, and it was expensive. And there was, Jeremy talked about a $1 dial tone. I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers a dial tone anymore, but you had dial tones, you had you had engaged lines, you had, and so in the 90s, you had this concept of voice over IP. And what voice over IP did was took this concept that used to happen over these telephone lines and said, like, we're going to do this thing on the internet. And it was a pretty revolutionary idea. And over the years, over the last 23 years, communication has been simplified and commoditized, right? So you can use WhatsApp, you can use Messenger, you can use Zoom if you wanted, you can use iMessage to basically be able to FaceTime to be able to communicate with anybody you want in the world. And at this point, voice communication is possible from any application. Okay? It is really, really easy. It is extremely programmable. But in 1997, when we started on this path, or 95, when we started on this path of like voice over IP, it was very hard to imagine a world in which every phone user in the world, 5 billion phone users in the world, will be using voice over IP over the internet, because it was such a novel concept. It was so hard. There was all of this regulation around like telecom communication that had to be worked through. Okay? But here we are, 25 years later, 30 years later, and it has become superbly easy to communicate over the internet. We think the same thing will happen to financial services. We think because we have a programmable dollar, financial services will be much more programmable, and they will reach out far and wide. The internet removes inefficiencies, and like most people, like I said, like most people in the world should be able to hold the dollar if we are successful. So what will happen in that world? We will have near instant cross-border payments, right? So I don't have to rely on correspondent banking if I want to send money if I want to send dollars somewhere else in the world. Everywhere I want to send dollars in the world, the receiver is going to be able to hold that dollar. Right? That is that's a very important idea. They don't have to hold the local currency. They can actually hold the dollar. And then lastly, we will have a very programmable and open platform on which developers can innovate. So let's talk about a platform a little bit, how we are designing our products to fulfill this vision. The most core part of our platform is make the best dollar stablecoin. And I'll talk to what that looks like. The second thing is we want to make it easy to access the dollar stablecoin around the world. So we have, Jeremy talked about our banking footprint. I'll speak to that a little bit. And thirdly, we want to provide tools for developers to be able to program with this dollar stablecoin. So let's talk about that. So how do we make the best dollar stablecoin? Well, we want to make sure that USDC is the most liquid, the most fungible token that is available around the best amongst the dollar stable coins that are available in the market. So we're live on 14 blockchains, and we're going to add a 15th, which is the Polygon proof of stake chain, I think on October 10th. We built a cross-chain transfer protocol to make it easy for people to move USDC natively across chains, right? So before we built CCTP or cross-chain transfer protocol, value had to be locked up in bridges, and like hundreds of millions of dollars was locked up in bridges because people wanted to find a way to move native USDC across chains. All of that doesn't have to be, right? We can have native USDC within minutes across chains today with cross-chain transfer protocol. And then we're working on gas abstraction. So we have concepts in this space that are already live, and we're working on new concepts. So if I was to send you money today, if I had an Ethereum wallet, I would need to have ETH to be able to send you USDC. This is a fairly complex concept. And to onboard into ETH, I would have to get onto an exchange like Coinbase, send them ACH, USD, buy Ethereum, buy USDC, move that USDC and that Ethereum to my MetaMask wallet, at which point I will be able to do a $10 transaction, which is a peer-to-peer transaction I would like to do with a friend of mine. That is absolutely insane. I can open up my Venmo and I can just hit your phone number and like boom, like the money goes over in an instant. That it is inefficient, that it is costly is not a concern to me because I don't care about, because what you're presenting as an alternative is so difficult to do that people are willing to take on the cost. And we would like to take all of that complexity away. We would like it to be that if I have $10 of USDC in my account, I can just send that $10 of USDC to another phone number, to another email, or any kind of addressing scheme there is in the world, right? And I don't have to think about gas. I don't have to think about like what kind of chain I have USDC on, what kind of chain is your wallet on, and all of that just happens underneath. And there are even more sophisticated concepts, like if you are in a wallet that is managed by a developer, maybe the developer just pays for the gas, and you never realize that there is such a thing as gas. So this whole idea around gas and having to onboard users into native tokens to help and explaining those things to them and why one is better than the other is a fairly complex concept that limits our ability to take this technology far and wide. So we're trying to simplify that as much as possible. Okay, and the end state is an open and frictionless platform to make sure that we can have wide adoption of this technology. Okay, the second thing we're doing is we are accelerating access to USDC around the world. What does this look like? If you are a business and you are in Asia and you're trying to get USDC today, you send us a wire on Friday, it clears on Monday or Tuesday with us, and you get your USDC hopefully that day or the next day. Okay, that's like 4 or 5 days worth of inefficiency built into the system. What if you were in Asia and you could send your US dollars to a local bank, or maybe even we bank with the same bank that you were banking with in Asia, and you could get your USDC instantaneously? Why is that good? Well, time is money, and so there is a time value for money, and we realize that, and we are expanding our banking footprint around the world. So we want to make sure that wherever the need for dollars is, we are there with instant liquidity and instant rails. So we want regional rails, and we will also have the ability to mint and redeem in local currencies. So you don't have to go buy dollars. You just bring your local currency to us, we do the FX, we give you the USDC. We're only getting started with this. We now have banking rails in the US. We just announced banking rails in Singapore. We will have more banking rails coming out all throughout the world over the next 12 months. And the last thing is to improve the tools and improve the user experience that the developers use to make applications that make it really easy for users to abstract away all of the complexity. And to do that, we recently launched the Circle Web3 Services product line. And to talk more about that, I'm going to give it to Gagan Mack, who works on it. Sorry.